All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a special short-term rentals webinar in partnership with Faye. And today we are talking about how enhancing the guest experience can drive your bottom line. My name's George Sell. I'm Editor-in-Chief for International Hospitality Media. You're probably used to seeing my colleague Paul on these short-term rentals webinars. Paul is currently enjoying his holiday in Canada, and he will be back for our next session. So this webinar is sponsored by Faye, and we are just going to watch a short video to find out a little more about them.
Sometimes, even the most well-planned moments might go awry. But with Faye, you can travel more confidently knowing you're covered. Faye protects everything related to your travel well-being. Our smart technology goes where you go with 24/7 real-time travel assistance, instant support, hassle-free claims resolutions, and much more. And we'll go the distance to care for you at every step of your journey, from liftoff to checkout.
Great stuff. Thanks to Faye. And you can see some contact details for them in the chat. There's going to be quite a lot of information posted in the chat today, actually, so make sure you make some notes around those. Today's webinar is going to last an hour. We'd like to make it as interactive as possible, so if you do have any questions for our panelists, you can submit them using either the Q&A or the chat function in Zoom. We'll either get around to answering them there and then, or we'll save 10 minutes at the end of the session. A recording of the webinar will be sent via email to everybody who's registered. So we've got a fantastic international panel with us today. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in turn. And we're going to start with Noga from Faye, who's also going to show you a couple of slides just to let you know a bit more about their company. Over to you, Noga.
Thank you, George, and thank you everyone for tuning in today. I'm very excited for a great discussion with our panelists. As George said, I'm Noga. I'm head of partnerships here at Faye, and just to give you a little bit of context into the company, we're a travel insurance provider that's powering the freedom to roam confidently. So before I explain what that means, you saw a little bit on the video, but let me just give a little bit of an overview of today's travel insurance. I'm sure you already know that it doesn't live up to basic expectations. Probably, as I said, travel insurance, your mind immediately went into something negative. And that's really because it's historically been something that offers a confusing and obscure policies, leaving you not really understanding what you purchased and how to use it properly. There's a bureaucratic and slow process. If you do have to have a claim, there's snail mail involved, and it will probably take several months. And often a not very good claims process that leaves the user really not feeling that their purchase was valuable. And of course, the property managers or hosts that are on this call today probably don't feel enticed to offer that to their guests, as it wasn't a good experience to begin with. So Faye is here to really turn that all on its head, creating a person-first, proactive, and holistic travel insurance coverage. So you see completely digital, you can file apps, you can file claims in app, you get paid back in the app straight to your phone's wallet. We have customer support in app 24/7 there for you for any travel hiccup, and even more. So just a bit about the coverage itself. It's comprehensive, which means we cover your health, your trip investment, and your stuff. And there's a series of add-ons. So if people are going to do something with extreme sports, they can add that protection. Of course, if they're staying at a vacation rental, we have vacation rental damage protection. And what's nice is that you can customize the amount that your trip is costing you and how much you want to insure it for. So we're really working on getting you covered, coverage that's not too much and not too little. On a personal note, I had the privilege to travel with Faye recently. I just got back from Africa yesterday, and had the good fortune of purchasing a Faye policy, but unfortunately had to use it a little bit too much. So we had pretty much everything that you could have go wrong went wrong. And between baggage delays, trip cancellation, a car accident, health issues, I experienced firsthand what the 24/7 support of Faye was all about. And beyond the reimbursements, which, by the way, I got in-app before even filing a claim myself, that was really great. But the support that I received while I was in country, not knowing what to do, was more than anything I could have asked for. And that's really to highlight our 24/7 customer support is there for any travel hiccup, but all the way to medical emergencies when you really need it the most. And in-app assistance features such as telemedicine, you can get access to 20,000 doctors speaking a variety of languages. It's all free as part of your coverage. We have real-time flight alerts, which help guests obviously understand where their flight is delayed or gate changes, etc. But property managers can also benefit from this information to really understand if guests are arriving later than planned. And of course, our digital wallet allows customers to get claims paid directly to their wallet, sometimes while they're even in the trip, like in my case, so that I didn't have to incur any out-of-pocket expenses. And just a couple of facts to wrap this up. We're available nationwide in the US for domestic and international travel. Our team is comprised of insurance and travel tech experts. So we have Allianz, Lemonade, Guesty. I'm sure you've heard of Guesty. Thank you again for joining today. And we're an A-rated insurance underwritten by US Fire Insurance Company. So you can rest assured it's top-notch policies. And lastly, why we're all here today, we're partnering with hospitality providers and travel brands that are as obsessed as we are with providing that 6-star customer experience. And so I'm really looking forward to talking with many of you in the future and for this discussion going forward. Thanks again.
Thanks, Noga. And there's nothing like road testing your own product. You've certainly given it a good workout by the sound of it.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move over to David. Welcome to you, David. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you do and do.
They call me Dave at Duve, so it makes it really easy to remember. So Dave at Duve. What I do is I have business development, work with partners and integrations. One of our key abilities is to integrate with numerous over 100 integrations worldwide. So we're able to really serve our customers wherever they need according to their local needs, such as PMSs or local payments provider. A little bit about Duve. Duve is a guest experience platform. We actually started from the vacation rental space, but grown tremendously into the hotel side of things. We're now serving more than 60 countries, and customers are using Duve to communicate, personalize, and create more revenue for their guests. My last name is ROI, so this is all I care about. So that's my bottom line here, right there.
Thanks, David. Duve, that's got a good ring to it. Yeah, we'll remember that one. Robin, welcome to you.
Thank you, George. Thanks for hosting us today, and welcome to all the participants joining. I can see it's morning, evening, and indeed night in some places where you are. I recognize many of the names that have dialed in, and for those I don't know, it's nice to meet you for the first time. So my background, 20 years in online accommodation with the last 8 in vacation rentals. I spent 5 years at Airbnb, managing the supply network across 80 countries, which is how I know some of the people dialing in. And the last year I've been heading up the director of sales for Guesty. And Guesty is the world's largest property manager, also connecting to a marketplace with hundreds of partners like Duve to make sure that we cater for all the needs of vacation rentals. My goal for today is to share some of the knowledge and experience I have from my time in travel, particularly vacation rentals. Maybe give some data from Guesty around what the key upsells are, and for anybody dialing in to try and get an understanding of like where upsells are at the moment, what they can do and when, and get some key takeaways that helps drive their business.
Great stuff. Thanks, Robin. And finally, Laura, good afternoon to you.
Hi, good afternoon, George. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for being here today. It's an honor for me to represent the online travel agency side when talking about guest experience, because that's what Plum Guide is all about. So I had the business development segment at Plum Guide. And for those that don't know what Plum Guide is essentially we're a short-term rental platform specializing in the luxury segment. And our mission is to reinvent the way the property managers present their homes to our main guest, who is the discerning traveler. It's considered that this discerning traveler is desperately underserved in the VR space. And this is exactly what we're trying to solve by putting together a world's best homes collection for them. So basically, we differentiate ourselves mainly in 3 things. One is that we vet every single home that goes into our platform, and roughly we accept 1 on 50 homes, more or less. We're really, really big on radical transparency, meaning that our in-house merchandising team and content team will write the listing as it is and will tell you the truths, good and bad. And the third point, and the most significant, is that we provide excellent service at the touch of a button, pre-stay, during stay, and post-stay. And as Noga said, you know, the in terms of like the customer service, it's key for us. And our guests and hosts will always speak with a human, which is very rare nowadays. So basically, we exist to give our guests and hosts confidence, transparency, and impeccable service. We now have over 35,000. We've been going on for about 7 years, and we've got over 35,000 homes worldwide. And yeah, we keep expanding our portfolio in new markets.
Right, thank you, Laura. Okay, let's crack on with the conversation then. I'd like to start, Robin, with you. Perhaps you could just talk a little bit about what the traditional upsell routes in the vacation rental sector have been, and perhaps how that's evolving as the sector matures.
Yeah, sure, George. I think if I wind the clock back 20 years ago when I entered travel first, and I was in the hotel space for about 10 years, upselling wasn't really a thing. So you go online, you book your accommodation, you turn up, and then you book all your activities and all the different things you want around your trip when you get there. I think over the years, people have become aware that maybe only 20% of the spend of accommodation is on accommodation, and there's 80% to be gained from the rest of the market. And so with that in mind, upselling has become a thing. And if we fast forward to vacation rentals in the last 8 years and the rise of Airbnb and some of the companies around that, you end up with your property and a lot of your business coming from these big OTAs, these big online travel agents. And in that scenario, it's very hard to stand out from the crowd, because if you think of Trivago or Airbnb, you may have on Trivago just like 5 boxes with a picture and 15 prices. On Airbnb, you've got millions of hosts with a few lines to present themselves at the start. So I think the drive behind upselling is to increase your revenue from the guest that's arriving by trying to get them to upgrade their accommodation, or potentially try and buy some experiences or stock a fridge or whatever it may be, parking, arriving from the hotel, and all the things you can upsell. And I'm sure everybody's got different things they can offer depending on their area. So you're trying to increase your revenue, but you're also trying to increase your brand, and you're trying to drive the reviews on your platform, which helps you stand out from the crowd. So I think it's very important on multiple levels to have upsells. And if you think of Airbnb or Booking.com in the modern world, your key unit of currency for conversion is your review score. And what you'll find is that people who do upselling very well, particularly where they upsell experiences that are very localized to their area, or they're flexible on checkout or check-in, this gets called out in the reviews. And having been at Airbnb for 5 years, it's amazing how many people will read those first 4 or 5 reviews. And that can be the difference between you getting a booking versus your competitor. So not only can it help you increase your revenue from the guest that's arriving at your property, it can also help you with conversion on the front end pre-booking, and that's really important. And then if we think of the key sources for upselling today, so it depends on your location. There's multiple offers you can bring to the market, but we surveyed a lot of our guests in preparation for this call, and what we found was, unsurprisingly, in first place was late checkout. Turns out that lots of people who make transactions for $1,000 don't like to be told they have to check out at a particular time, especially if it's 10 or 11 a.m. We've all been there where we like to have a few extra hours. So often that service is very important. Yes, you have to operationalize it, but you can make a lot of revenue from it because it's a highly booked service. The second one was early check-in. So again, when people have a flight, it's arriving at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. If your place is available on that day and you haven't had a booking the night before, you should offer early check-in. It's easy revenue. It's great value for the guest. It enhances their experience. And again, on the conversion side, when they've already made their flight booking before the accommodation, if they're traveling internationally, a lot of guests are just looking for a place that offers early check-in because they don't want to hang around the city with their bags for 6 or 7 hours, which is completely understandable. And then in third place, just to wrap up like the top 3, was pet fees. So people who go on vacation rentals, and we saw a big drive during COVID to bring the whole family, and the whole family typically includes pets. So again, where you either don't accept pets or you're not clear on what the fees are, you're missing out on an opportunity and a really big segment, and also an opportunity for revenue for people who are traveling with their beloved pets. So there's lots of different upsell options, like I mentioned. And during the pandemic, upselling became even more popular when we had a surge in domestic travel. And whilst post-pandemic, what we've seen at Guesty is that some of the experiences that people were booking during the pandemic in their domestic locations, that has tailed off a little bit. It's not as, the tailwinds aren't as strong as they were. And maybe there's some headwinds as we come out of COVID, but there's definitely tailwinds around length of stay, early check-in, late check-in, pet fees, breakfast, late checkout, upgrading rooms. And, you know, this is something that's going to continue in the future. And if we look ahead and we try and fast forward like to what's going to happen in a world where tech is advancing and AI is advancing, upsells will definitely expand to things like keyless entry, personalization throughout the stay. Sustainability is a really big one, and more besides. So big opportunity now, big opportunity in the future, great opportunity to stand out from the crowd, big opportunity to increase your conversion on OTAs, improve your review scores, and also to drive more revenue from every guest that comes and stays in your property.
Excellent, great stuff. Thanks, Robin. Noga, did you want to offer your perspective on that, on how the kind of upsell landscape is evolving? Presumably on a trip to somewhere like Zimbabwe, there's a lot of options there. I'm thinking mainly more in this field of kind of activities and excursions and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Robin explained, the shift to upselling more and more experiences are something that consumers are starting to expect. They're traveling more, they're spending more money on their vacations, and they're really optimizing on getting through as many activities as they possibly can while they're on vacation. So what this means is that your initial investment of the flight and maybe the accommodation is just the beginning of the amount of money that you're about to spend. And people are wanting to ensure that investment so that they can feel free to book everything. But in the case that something goes wrong, they get their money back. And again, unfortunately, I literally had this exact situation with Zimbabwe. We booked helicopter flight over Victoria Falls. We booked safari and et cetera. One of us got COVID. COVID is not dead yet, everyone, so it's still around. One of us got COVID and she couldn't go on the trip. So we had the flight cancellation, the accommodations cancellation, but also all the upsells that we had bought through the accommodation. So rest assured, all of that is going to be reimbursed to us. And for the accommodation provider, they're also not having to refund something that they don't want to refund. They're getting their money, we're getting our money, everyone's happy. But we also felt like we could book our trip, we could book all the excursions and activities that we wanted. And in the case of something bad could happen, in this case did happen, we're fine. So this is something that travel insurance is maybe a more traditional upsell in the airlines OTA space. It's less so in vacation rental, short-term rentals. Hotels are starting to see it as well in the last few years, that it can be a meaningful revenue generator for the hospitality provider, while providing a really good service, valuable service to their customers.
Great stuff. Thanks, Noga. David, can you tell us a little bit about how upsell innovations are helping PMCs and travel companies, maybe with a bit of data on how it affects the bottom line?
Sure. So I want to start with a big number, but it's going to blow your mind. So 192% is the average ROI that customers are using Duve, but for that matter, any technology or innovative way to optimize their guest experience. 192% return on investment is the average that a host gets for using technology to enhance a guest experience. And in that 192%, obviously you have upselling. So one of the key for upselling or using innovation for today's hospitality industry is really the hyper personalization, meaning to understand who your customer is. You know how like Netflix and Amazon, when we log into them, we have different expectations. We find different content. Same goes for TikTok. We don't have the same view. So why shouldn't we also personalize or even say hyper personalize the guest experience? So if you're able to really find the right information, find the right medium, and find the right time to connect with your guests, that equals ROI that drives your bottom line. So one of those use cases are a customer of ours. It's called Merrill House. It's a boutique hotel in Canada that actually surpassed the 192% and managed to create around 430 percent ROI just on the first month. And actually, playing on what Robin said, very simply just adding simple upselling such as early checking, late checkout, and things like that. Okay. And if we know to get to the right guests at the right time by personalizing his experience, we're able to create a lot of revenue. So when I look at a guest, every guest experience, every guest interaction that I have using Duve's platform or other platforms, I'm collecting data on him just like I would if I would see his TikTok feed or Instagram feed. And by learning his desires, his needs, his passion, I'm able to find the right way to also create smart upselling. And that's what's relevant for today. I want to offer families who are coming with kids different upselling than to people who are coming on the honeymoon. Okay. So, for example, this Merrill House, it's a really beautiful boutique hotel in Canada. They had a huge challenge of driving higher revenue. Okay. So we not only have we helped them to digitize the processes and help the labor-heavy processes such as check-in on their staff or other things like that to digitize that, but also automate them. So by allowing the Merrill House to sell various add-on services like room upgrades, early check-in, late checkout, Robin mentioned already, dinner reservation, and much more, but also to sell them at the right time, to the right persona. For example, before the day I was leaving, I would get a message saying, hey, maybe you can check out with a few dollars more, check out 5 hours later. Okay, that's relevant for me at the right time. Okay, and not only using the internal upselling of the property itself, but also using external upselling. So Duve, for example, allows a marketplace for other services, whether it's ones you turn on the click of a button, for example, a global taxi service that we use, that you could add to your property and create a whole new revenue stream, or perhaps a local vendor that you want to add on to your services, and that can create another way of creating revenue from these guests. Okay, so that's just 430% return on investment on the first month. So obviously the side effects of using smart upselling innovative system is really, guest experience was out of the ballpark. Guests loved it, especially the young ones who were able to have everything in the palm of their hand, but also the older ones who had the staff more focused on their needs because they kind of put the other things that could be automated on the system or the platform itself. Okay, so that's a very simple way to start creating revenue for you by understanding your customer, knowing your guest, and knowing what is the right thing to sell to each guest and at the right time.
Excellent. Thanks, Dave. Let me just stay with you for a minute because we've had a really good question in here from Jamal, who's asking about how AI fits into all this. And I think this whole kind of personalization piece and getting to know your guests' behaviors, their habits, and so on, is this a process that you're describing? Is that being sped up by AI technology as it develops?
Yes. First of all, I want to say something about AI. Okay. The real AI is action items, not artificial intelligence. Okay. So if you're using AI without action items, it's half using the process itself. But to answer your question, yes, we're definitely using AI to help not overcome or replace the human service touch, but to focus the employees or the staff of the property, whether it's even no staff, also to create the right urgency. For example, when we communicate with a guest when he's in stay, to understand what are the most urgent conversation with the guest. The AI could pick up urgency. For example, I was locked out of Robin's apartment and then I couldn't get in. And Robin has, I don't know if it's true, but I assume it's true, but Robin has about 50 apartments that he's renting out to Airbnb, and only I was locked out, but he has tons of other messages. So my message will pop out as the most urgent and will give Robin the courtesy to get to it first. That's one way of using AI. Another way of using AI is to communicate with a guest, meaning using your data or your information about the property and then letting AI run through it. For example, if Laura comes to my property and she has a question which is already asked many times before, for example, what's the Wi-Fi password or how do I turn on the AC? The AI could already answer that and then take the friction off the experience of the guest.
Thanks, Dave. Laura, let's come to you. Have you got any examples of how upselling has positively impacted your guests' experience?
So from Plum Guide, we don't really directly upsell per se. We do offer the possibility to our property managers to upsell themselves once the booking is confirmed or once we are talking to them about getting that booking in the books. So the good thing is that property managers get the 100% revenue out of that. And it's definitely a big piece, because our type of customer that, again, it's seeking the extra great experience, is always going to purchase something else, whether it's a private chef or a nanny service, some kind of like, transportation, extra cleaning, etc. And that's something that we definitely allow our host and guests to communicate directly, and the host can upsell. What I would say is that from our end, and to enhance the guest experience, we, as I said, we don't upsell directly as such, but we do follow other customer-centric strategies that definitely lead to retention and repeat business for us. And is going to my third point of when I was saying why we're different, and that our main aim is to provide excellent service at the touch of a button, is because we have a matchmaking team. They're your all travel agents kind of thing, and the guests can communicate with them directly when they're interested in like going on holiday to X destination. And again, it's a team of humans, it's a team of dedicated high value booking experts that live locally and they know the place, and they help the guests book the best home for them. So first of all, we vet the home. So already what we publish on the website as part of our collection, it's been vetted by an expert and is always going to be good. And then we add this extra layer of service for the guests, that is the possibility to speak to someone one-on-one and design the experience from that travel specifically that they want to do.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Robin, Laura used the word retention there. Can you tell us a bit about how upselling can help with customer retention, repeat business, and also boosting the reviews, which you referred to earlier, which are so important?
Yeah, sure, George. I think when we think about vacation rentals, I see upselling as more important because I see reviews as more important. If you're booking a Hilton or a Travel Lodge or a hotel, there's a certain expectation based on the hotel you're booking or the price you're paying, what the box will look like in the building. And it's like 50 boxes in the building, and there's only so much variation between them. Whereas if you're looking for a vacation rental on Plum Guide or Airbnb, and there's a million properties in some part of the world you haven't been, and they don't have a brand, it's very, very difficult to understand what it is you're getting. And therefore the reviews are very important, and the description of the content is very important. So again, as I mentioned earlier, reviews is the key unit of currency, in my opinion, from my time at Guesty and Airbnb, to drive your price and your conversion. So it's absolutely important. If you do upsells, if you enhance the guest experience, this will be called out in your review scores time and time again, and it will drive conversion. And then when I think of retention, I think that a lot of property managers are, again, in told the hotel world, are trying to understand, how can I migrate my business from channels that charge me a commission to potentially a direct channel where I can reduce the cost of sale? And that's quite tricky to do, because the big companies have a huge reach and they perform a really important value and part. Airbnb, Booking, Plum Guide, I mean, they're the core of the industry, of course. But also when customers come to you and you want them to book with you directly the next time, I think if you can enhance that experience and post-booking, as an example, sell them some of the experiences that we've heard on this call, particularly the further you travel, the more if I'm going to Zimbabwe or Tokyo, I'm much more likely to buy an experience than if I'm just going somewhere in my own country. So if you can provide that experience and enhance it, as well as making revenue, it will allow you to retarget those customers who've had a great experience, who typically come back to you time and time again in the future. So, and the last thing I would say is that with upselling, it's like, it can be overwhelming sometimes to understand, should you sell pre-booking, post-booking, on arrival, at what point in the journey, and at what point did you offer different things? Because if we've all booked on Ryanair or EasyJet, and sometimes you get frustrated by the amount of things that get in your way that are not relevant to your purchase. So for example, I'm booking with Ryanair, I'm booking to go to London same day, and they're offering me a golf trip. I mean, I can't even play, I'm not even there long enough. So it's quite frustrating. So I think it's important for people to, if you haven't started upselling, if you want to do it seamlessly, I would encourage you to use one of the marketplace partners like Duve and the expertise that David is kind of sharing this, because they will be able to get the personas of your guests, put the right solution in front of them at the right time to maximize your revenue, but also not interfere with their booking experience at any point in the journey and cause them unnecessary frustration.
I think that's a good point. I think upselling has to be done sensitively, and it has to be done according to the customer profile. I mean, the budget airline example is a good one, and it drives you mad, and you know, it almost actually turns you against
Correct.
you know, booking something extra when you might have done if you hadn't gone through such an arduous process. It's
really it's really important to put the right upsell at the right time in front of the right guest. It's just like marketing, right? Like if you don't do that correctly, you're causing frustration, you're slowing down the path to booking, and ultimately reducing your chances of getting the reservation. So again, there's lots of companies out there who can help you do this seamlessly if you want to test, and I'd encourage you to take advantage of it because it's really important for your review score and your retention and your bottom line.
Yeah. And going back to reviews for a minute, Robin, do you think the vacation rental audience are quite proactive in leaving reviews, and what tips have you got for people to actually encourage guests to leave reviews? I'm terrible. I only ever leave a review if I have an absolutely outstanding experience or an absolutely terrible one. Anywhere in between, I just don't do it. But I think I'm probably in a minority there. But what can people do to encourage reviews?
That's fair. I think the first thing is to make sure somebody has a good experience, because as you said, at that top level of experience where you've upsold things that have enhanced their booking beyond what their expectation was, you're much more likely to get a review. It's much more likely to be positive. As well as that, I mean, typically if you look at Airbnb as the leader in the vacation rental space, people often tend to review the hosts and not the listing. So, you know, a castle, which is like $10,000 a night, can get 4.7 out of 5. But Mary's spare bedroom can get 4.9 because Mary was lovely, which is sometimes as a guest hard to figure out, is it the host that's being reviewed or is it the property? It's both in truth, but I think it's really important to have that personalized touch so much as you can to make the experience of the guest as seamless as possible. And of course, once the experience is good and they check out, to follow up and ask them for a review. And the review scores, the percentage of reviews to bookings in vacation rental is far higher than hotels. So if you do this well, you will reap the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, I suspected that might be the case. So that's interesting to know. Laura, let's broaden the conversation a little bit and talk about kind of travel trends and how they're affecting the vacation rental market. Obviously, the pandemic has changed things a lot. Delayed flights are affecting people a lot, as several of us have found out recently, and travel is becoming a bit more uncertain. What are the concerns amongst your customers when they're booking on your site, and what do you think are the main trends affecting customers in this sector?
Yeah, so it's a difficult one because especially after the pandemic, so many things have changed, right? Like the travel behavior, the consumer behavior, everything has changed in general. And the bottom line is that people are expecting more in general for various reasons, because they want more, but also because they understand more, because they're traveling more. So therefore their understanding of what a good experience when you're traveling is completely different to what it used to be before. So I would say that the main trends, obviously, as everybody knows, is the fact that there's so many of us and so many people that are digital nomads now. Obviously, this has accelerated the trend of remote work. People are traveling not only during their summer vacations, and this means that they can travel throughout the year, not just in August. They can go in like October, etc., etc. They can go for longer. They don't have to go only for 2 weeks. So this is like something that has massively impacted, especially the vacation rental market, and this is why it has exploded, especially after COVID. And yeah, this like experiential travel. So everybody's looking for an experience. Nobody wants to go to the boring corporate hotel anymore. Everybody wants to get immersed in the local activities. We live in the age of social media as well. Everybody wants to share with their followers everything that they're doing, and everybody's looking for a unique and more memorable experience than before necessarily. And another big one that we're seeing because of the nature of our business and working with like big property managers and some of them having like big homes, especially in holiday markets, is the multi-generational travel. So now we see families traveling together way more than before. in a house in Mallorca, it can be like 3 generations for like a month in July, because the kids are off school, the grandparents are there, and the parents can work from home, so they don't have to go to the office. So this has been like one of the biggest things that we've seen, that people demand for bigger and bigger type of accommodation. But yeah, as I say, the overarching trend is that a huge increase on people's expectations, also around cleanliness, obviously, because of everything that happened in the future. We do see that people are a lot more, have a lot more attention to detail, amenities. As I say, the more you travel, the more experiences you gather, and therefore the more you understand what constitutes a good stay, and the more you're going to demand next.
And do you think there are any specific trends or behaviors around customers in the very top echelons of the market, the people that are spending the big bucks? Are there any specific trends around their behaviors or tastes, what they're wanting?
I mean, it really varies, because we do have leisure and business. They are very into design. They do want something special. They don't want something corporate and boring. In terms of travel's behavior as such, they do tend to book way longer in advance. In our case, I'm not saying that this is for all online travel agencies, but because of our customer, the way it is, they do book way longer in advance. They definitely stay longer now, as I was saying, because they don't have to go to an office, and they can just, they mix holiday and work within the same destination. They travel during shoulder season, not necessarily on peak season when the kids are off school, or as I was saying, just because they're bound to just 25 days of holiday per year. So we have seen that especially in holiday markets such as, I don't know, like southern Spain or southern Italy, that the demand is actually like very, very, very high in October still, rather than like stopping in August pretty much. So they, after the pandemic, having this freedom has allowed them to run away from those destinations that are super busy in a specific time of the year, and has allowed property managers to benefit from that and balance that occupancy throughout the year as well.
Great stuff. Thanks, Laura. Noga, can you tell us a bit about how travel insurance can act as an extension of the property manager or the hospitality company's offer, and how it helps with the increasing uncertainty of travel these days?
Yeah, sure. So everyone has touched upon the fact that consumers are really expecting experiences and above and beyond customer support from their accommodation provider and from any of the excursions that they booked. But on the other hand, we've also talked about how travel is very unexpected these days. Delays are very commonplace. Cancellations are very commonplace. People are getting sick and not being able to go on their excursions. So as Laura said, people are booking very far in advance. They're booking more holidays than they used to, doing this, the bleisure thing of half holiday, half working from abroad, and booking in advance to get best prices. But all of that creates a situation where accommodation providers are really at this double-edged sword. You want to provide flexibility and refunds if the customer can't go. But on the other hand, you have a business to protect. You can't just be offering refunds at the last minute. So this is where travel insurance kind of provides the best of both worlds for both the traveler and the property manager or accommodation provider. You're able to give top-notch service to customers by saying, listen, with travel insurance, it's refundable for a covered reason. You get sick with COVID and you can't travel, you're going to get your money back. But we as an accommodation provider also get our money. So it's the best of both worlds. And then with Faye specifically, because as I mentioned, we're really customer oriented, we're working to provide a travel companion and not just travel insurance. So what that means is our concierge support is available for travelers no matter what the issue is. And so take one of my examples again. I'm so glad I can be an example all the time. The baggage delay, in the case where we didn't get our bags, we had no clothes. We weren't sure, should we go buy new clothes or will the bags come quickly? And in that case, I don't have a cell service. I don't have local phone numbers. So traditionally, I would have gone to the concierge team at the front desk and said, can you call the airlines and try to figure this out for me? That's totally not their job, but of course they're going to do it for me because they want me to have a good experience. In this case, I contacted Faye. They contacted the airlines on my behalf, figured it out, told me when the airlines was going to be arriving, when my bags were going to be arriving, and really managed it from A to Z. So this provided me peace of mind. I got great service, but I also allowed the accommodation provider to deal with the business that they are supposed to deal with and not all the other things. So there's this give and take that we can help accommodation providers kind of alleviate some of the operational stress. Another example I mentioned earlier was on the flight alerts. So delays are really commonplace, but it provides an operational challenge for accommodation providers who are not sure now when the customer is supposed to be checking in. They might have written on, on the Duve app that they're checking in at noon, their flight's delayed, they can't communicate with you or they're not going to, and now you don't know what to do. So we are getting flight information when the customer provides it, and we can relay that information saying, hey, listen, this customer is actually arriving 12 hours later than planned. Not only does that help you on the operational side, but maybe you want to offer a bottle of wine in their room when they arrive because they're kind of pissed off that they've just taken so long to get there. So it goes back to everything we've been saying about going like that next step above and beyond for customer experience. And really helps you from that way. So there's operational benefits on, cancellations and reimbursements and all of that. There's also, getting to that next level of customer experience. Again, this is not something that traditionally all travel insurance would provide you. It's something that's very special with what we're doing at Faye. And we're seeing our accommodation providers are really enjoying reaping the benefits of that kind of relationship.
And our accommodation providers selling your product as part of their offer when customers are booking with them, or do they direct you to them? How would it work?
Yeah, so again, it goes back to what Laura and Dave have talked about in terms of personalization. You have the customers who are booking months in advance. You have customers who are booking last minute. We see the same thing. It really depends on the persona. And so some people prefer to purchase the travel insurance at the time of booking their first, hotel or flight. And at that point, it could be done on the listing site. It could be done as part of the booking engine for your direct bookings. And then we have people who prefer to purchase it as they're building their trip itinerary throughout their, the lead up to the trip. So at that point, it could be done through the communication with the guest, is if it's the emails, SMS, etc. So there's various places that we can be placed, and depending on the persona, they might prefer it at different areas.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Noga. Right, let's talk about some ways to integrate some of these successful upsell strategies into sales cycles and talk about some proven successes. Robin, do you want to give us an example or two from the Guesty side?
Yeah, I think looking at the experience of our customers and the guests that they're targeting, again, I go back to it's the right offer at the right time can really make a difference. And this can vary depending on the persona of the guest or indeed the time of stay. So if we break it down into pre-booking as an example, so before the customer books, including certain upsells such as early check-in, late checkout, a welcome basket, airport transfer can make a difference to getting the reservation. Not always will the guest book those relevant upsells when they're making the pre-booking, because it's a big transaction to make on the accommodation. But knowing that those are in mind for down the line can sometimes improve your conversion, even if they don't book with them. And then pre-arrival, so as the guest gets closer to arrival, an example would be if you've got a family arriving a week beforehand, you might send them a message saying, hey, we see you arriving, you're flying into Heathrow or Malaga. Would you like to have an airport taxi? Would you like, I see you're coming early in the morning. Would you like a welcome basket with some croissants or whatever it is you feel like some local experience that you can provide a bakery or whatever it may be? That's really important. And then again, upon arrival, depending on the persona of the guest and the time of day, you can present a breakfast, an evening, or a nighttime basket, toothpaste, whatever it may be, just to enhance that guest experience at that time. And then during the stay, I think, during the stay, I'm always cautious because I think it's really important to pay attention to your guests and their preferences throughout the stay, but it's also really important not to over communicate at that point, because sometimes in vacation rentals, it can be more tricky to check in or make the booking than it is just turning into a hotel and going to your room. So if you're really seamless on the experience of checking in, then it's much more easier to approach the guest afterwards and not be like, oh, it's me again. But at this point, you can offer things like, late checkout, obviously, when they're staying. You can give them an offer for repeat booking in the future. You can offer them a local experience, a private chef, whatever it is in your area that makes it so special that they may not be aware of. I think Laura touched on, it's like, can you provide that local experience that maybe they haven't even found on the internet when they were doing their hours of research before they arrived? And then if we speak about, George, like, how do we incorporate this into your sales cycle? I mean, there's two ways you can do it, right? Like, it depends where your reservation is coming from. On the OTAs, like Airbnb, it probably gives you a bit more free rein on the content because you upload your own content. Sometimes on Booking, and Plum Guide is probably the same, they give you more free rein. Whereas on Booking.com, it's very automated. They write the content for you. Sure, it's optimized, but it doesn't necessarily help when it comes to trying to promote upsells. And then I think the most important part for me is, like, in a world where more and more people are trying to find the key holder or the owner and going direct to see if there's a better deal. If indeed you are getting customers direct to your website, or you don't have a website, which you should at some point, I think it's important. There's your chance to really showcase all of the experiences you have in your area, all of the upsells, whatever they may be. The more localized, the better, particularly for vacation rental destinations as opposed to cities, which are much more, I guess, commoditized. So in that situation, like with Guesty, we provide a website where you can easily drag and drop to build your website really easily, because not everybody is technically minded, which I think is really important. You can set it up in an hour. You've got a CRM where you can build all of your personas of your customers. You can have all of your testimonials, your reviews. And then, of course, you can, in that process, you can automate as much as you want in terms of messaging in all those stages of arrival. So you don't have to, when you know the persona of a certain guest, you don't have to, you can say, at this time, send them a welcome email. At this time, send them a taxi pre-arrival. At this time, send them a list of local experiences. At this time, send them a request for a booking, for a guest review, assuming that X, Y, and Z hasn't happened. If it's a nightmare of an experience, don't bother triggering that message. So it gives you full control. And then, of course, if you look at our marketplace, and I touched on it earlier, is like, as much as it's okay for me to sit here and say to participants, you should be doing upselling, it's really important. And some people are sitting here saying, well, there's a reason I don't do it. Operationally, it's really difficult. I'm not sure of the value proposition. It's not easy to get the personas, and I'm just not sure if it enhances the experience or if it's worth my time. This is where I would encourage you to look at some of the marketplace players we have in Guesty. We've got one here today in Duve. We've got some of their competitors, You're Welcome, and a couple more. But I think these companies are, they're experts for a reason. And as much as I can tell you about this experience, when people like Dave can give you the ROI of what's behind it, I think that's more important. And also, if they can seamlessly help you get this up so you can A/B test, then I think, again, there's a reason why people are using these companies. I think they add a lot of value. And I think that, ultimately, if you want to compete in a world where the number of vacation rentals on an OTA or on the internet is rapidly expanding, and guests are trying to find that USP that picks one apart from the other, this is the kind of thing that makes the difference. I really believe that.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Well, let's go to Dave, and Dave, if you could maybe offer us some examples of successes, and maybe one or two of the more sort of left field upsells that you know about that have been successful.
Sure. So really, Robin covered a lot of that, meaning early check-in, late checkout, as you mentioned, pets, upselling. But I think the main point of upselling is to know your guests. So Robin mentioned, like, who is your guest? Try to build this persona or using CRM or other technology. That's what part of the things that makes a difference. We collect every touch point with the guest, and by doing that, we're able to create this not pesky but intriguing upselling. Okay. So, for example, as Robin or Noga mentioned, when the guest is arriving and I know that he has booked with me 2 years ago, but this time he hasn't booked, for example, dinner. I can offer him, hey, today dinner's on us. Okay. Think about the guest experience there, and think about the fraction of the cost that you're making to create this exceptional guest experience. So that's in stay. Okay. Pre-stay, I think we've discussed enough, but post-stay, I really want to say, because we don't often look into that too much, especially if we don't have loyalty. A lot of vacation rental or Airbnbs don't really have a loyalty program. So we're actually using, for example, Duve's communication hub to connect with the guest post-stay. So either triggered by the post-stay, the checkout itself. Here, leave a review if it was a great stay. we'll prompt the guest to leave a review, but also beyond that, like Noga just got back from a vacation in Zimbabwe, but so we'll connect with Noga maybe in 2 weeks' time, and we'll say to her, hey, this is, and it could be an email and a WhatsApp, SMS, whatever Noga chooses to connect with the host. By the way, it could be personalized video where, hi, Noga, your stay with us was great, or your birthday just came up, okay? We're reminding you that if you book now for your birthday in 7 months, you'll get 20% off, okay? That's part of the post-day engagement that you want to create with your guests. It's harder to do it when you're Airbnb or you have a few flats. It's easier when you have a big chain of hotels doing that. And it's obviously more streamlined, but using platforms such as Duve or other innovative platforms to create the post-stay and the loyalty upselling, even if it's not properly upselling and creating the revenue right now, is a key for A, returning your guests, making them come again, and B, creating a guest experience that would say, hey, I was just at Robin's apartment last week in Malaga. Laura, you should really come and check it out. They even asked me after how was my stay, and they promised me to come again. And you can get a 20% discount because you're my friend. That's post-stay engagement, which is crucial today.
So it's negotiating that fine line between being pesky and intriguing. I like that. That's the stance you got to take. Noga, is there anything else you want to add about how to integrate travel insurance into the offer?
I think we covered it earlier in terms of timing. So depending on the customer, it can be offered during the booking of the accommodation. I think that's probably one of the more common areas, especially because that allows you to have pre-existing conditions coverage as well. And as I said on the chat, if you didn't see it, that you can also update your coverage over time up until your departure. So we've talked a lot about upsells. Obviously, at the time of booking your accommodation, you don't actually know all the upsells you might purchase. So this allows you to kind of get the coverage you need and still have the flexibility of booking your vacation up until the last minute. So the booking engine, the communication to the customers prior to leaving, and pretty much anytime up until they've departed for their trip. So that's where Duve is a perfect partner, right up until, you know, they're checking in, but they haven't left yet. That's a great time as well. If you haven't gotten travel insurance, it's something that, you know, customers have to learn a little bit about what the need is for travel insurance and what it can do for them. And as customers, especially on this call, we're talking, you know, customers who are purchasing with Plum Guide and very luxury stays. We have a lot of families, like Laura was saying. These ultimately are high cost trips. And they might think, well, maybe I have health insurance, or maybe I don't have health insurance for international or even domestic travel. But in addition to that, I have all of these things that I just booked, you know, all of these family excursions. And I didn't realize that if I get sick, that's non-refundable. So there's an element of kind of teaching them, but up until the moment of departure, reminding them that that's even something they might want to have. We found that to be a very successful tactic where ultimately, if you're asking the guest and suggesting them that they purchase, we have very high uptake rates because guests are saying, oh, actually, I hadn't thought about that, but now that you say it, it's actually a really good point.
Okay, thanks, Noga. I want to spend a few minutes now on getting onto the questions because we have some good ones from the audience. First, I'm just going to throw one very quickly to you, Laura. This is from Gordon Martin. He asks, how do we get a city to be evaluated by Plum Guide?
You can get in contact with us. Obviously, we grow by demand. So whatever we see the demand trends is where we tend to increase our inventory and open new markets. But if someone is interested to talk about a specific city with us, they can contact me and we can definitely evaluate it. We don't have a magic wand for it yet. It's literally based on demand for now, but we can also study how the demand trends are there and the type of supply that they have, and if it would be interested for Plum Guide to open up or not.
Great stuff. There you go, Gordon. I think we posted the LinkedIn profiles of all our speakers earlier up in the chat, so you can drop Laura a line and discuss that one further. A good question here from Joel Goldman, who asked, does anyone have good examples of where retailing using tech during the guest stay provide good customer reviews and also a revenue share with the real estate owner? Dave, I'm guessing that's something you might have experience of.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what's Joel asking, but maybe if he's referring to using external upselling. Is that what I'm not exactly sure what's the question for?
Yeah, I think he's talking about some kind of profit share with that goes to the property owner and the tech platform that makes it possible.
Yeah, so like as Robin mentioned a little bit, and we also have a marketplace where we allow the property owner to create external revenue streams, which are not part of the basic upselling of the property. So it could be a local provider's example of a taxi service, or a fisherman who will take the guys out for a fishing trip in the morning, but you can only connect with him either by talking to him and getting this, but it's not digitizing it. So using the marketplace is allowing both to take in in-house or built-in integrations or built-in revenue creation of upselling, or allowing local providers to come on the platform and be part of the whole experience of the guests within your property.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Dave. Just quickly want to go back to the AI question and give this one over to you, Robin. How do you think AI is going to affect the PMS side of things and enable people to offer a better experience and also to upsell?
Wow, it's such a big question, and there's people far more qualified than me to talk to this topic. But what I would say is that when I think of AI, I think that it's like it will help you build your content, your images, A/B tests, your presence on OTAs and your direct website much more seamlessly, especially at scale. And Guesty will help you do that. It will help you build personas, and then match those personas to the experience they have when they arrive. So I think we spoke about keyless entry, playing their favorite song when they arrive, all the different things you can offer through what Alexa and these AI tools can do. And then I think in the terms of the travel experience, that AI will ultimately make it easier for guests to find what they're looking for. And OTAs will use that to map guests and personas to particular listings. So it is really important that you, as you'll know on your OTAs and your direct website, that whatever it is you have to showcase your property, be it an upsell or different, that you do that, because as AI gets better, guests will be they'll find it easier to deep dive into Airbnb and other platforms and pull out exactly what they want. So if you don't have the right amenity, the right upsell, the right tagging, then you'll struggle. So yeah, there's multiple things you can use it for. And what I would say is that there are companies out there who provide tools off the shelf. Like, I don't think anybody should be trying to build their own AI. Yes, you can use ChatGPT for descriptions, but like companies like Guesty and other companies will come to the marketplace, be leaders, and provide these services for you, because I think it's a lot to get your head around.
Okay. Thanks, Robin, and thanks, everyone. That was a really fascinating discussion. We've practically come to the end of our hour now. I'm just going to show a couple more slides before we wrap up. So for our next short-term rentals webinar, Paul will be back in the chair, and he will be talking about advocacy for the sector, why your industry needs you. And we should probably get some kind of general Kitchener graphic made up for that session, really. The link to register for that session will be in the chat. And then we're very excited to announce a new event, the Short-Term Rentals Summit, which is taking place in London in October. If you buy 2 tickets for that event, you can get £100 discount off each ticket. And again, the link for that is in the chat. That's going to be a great event. I think some of our speakers today are going to be there, and hopefully lots of you will be too. If you'd like to work with us at IHM across any of our in real life events or our digital platforms, get in touch with one of my colleagues, Jordan or Piers, whose details you can see on the screen there and also in the chat. And I'd just like to say thank you to everybody. Thanks to Faye for sponsoring the session. Thanks to Noga, to Laura, to Robin, and to David for their insights today. Thanks to you all for watching. We're going to play the video again for a couple of minutes so you can take some notes from all that information that's in the chat, including our speaker contact details there. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching, and Paul will be back on the next session. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.